Okay, let's dive right into this. In August 2026, the automotive world lost a giant. Hiroshi Okuda passed away at the age of 93. Now, if you currently drive a hybrid, or if you've ever just watched a Prius silently roll past you, or maybe you've wondered exactly how a traditional Japanese car company transformed into an absolute global juggernaut, well, you are looking at his shadow. In this explainer, we're going to unpack the fascinating story of the disruptor who quite literally forced Toyota into the modern hybrid era. But here's the central mystery, something that a lot of those standard obituaries just completely gloss over. Hiroshi Okuda was never ever supposed to lead Toyota. Why? Because he wasn't a Toyota. He had absolutely zero bloodline ties to the founding family. In a deeply traditional corporate environment that prized family lineage and internal harmony above almost everything else, he was an absolute outsider, a total wild card who was never meant to hold the keys to the kingdom. And yet, the car he's most famous for championing, the Prius, almost certainly doesn't happen without him.
Section 1. The Unlikely Outsider, Shaking Up the 1990s.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast it shows. To really understand Okuda, you have to realize the incredibly dire situation Toyota was in. Japan's famous bubble economy had burst, and it was crippling their vital exports. So on one side, you've got traditional Toyota, insular, exporting everything straight from Japan and playing it incredibly safe. On the flip side is Okuda's highly controversial 1995 plan Vision 2005. When he took the reins as president, his immediate aggressive goal was to build plants right in the US, Europe, and Asia. It was a massive shock to the family-led norm, and internal critics were practically screaming that it was dangerously expensive.
But Okuda didn't blink. He pushed forward with a defining mantra, constantly telling his executives, "We need to build cars where we sell them, not ship them from Japan." He went ahead and built these massive manufacturing plants in places like Kentucky, France, and China. He essentially forced Toyota to think like a global entity rather than just a Japanese exporter. And you know what? It worked masterfully. By 2005, overseas sales had nearly doubled, successfully transforming the automaker into a true multinational powerhouse.
But we can't just look at him as a growth-focused executive. The guy was a total disruptor, operating inside a corporate culture that absolutely despised disruption. Just look at his tactics. He mercilessly slashed costs. He aggressively pushed younger executives right past senior leadership. He argued with the board constantly. He practiced this extreme bluntness that bordered on rude by traditional Japanese corporate standards. But here's the kicker. In a company suffering from institutional paralysis, this abrasive style didn't get him fired. Instead, it became his ultimate superpower.
Section 2. The Prius Gamble, Removing the Escape Hatch. So let's rewind the clock back to 1993. Toyota's engineers had been quietly tinkering with hybrid technology, sure, but it was just this low-priority side project. Most executives just viewed it as an expensive distraction. If you trace the timeline here, you can see just how precarious this whole thing was. By early 1997, the project had completely stalled out. The battery tech simply wasn't ready, and development costs were through the roof. The engineering team was practically begging for 2 or 3 more years to figure it out. But then, in March 1997, Okuda storms into a meeting and fundamentally alters the company's entire trajectory. He makes this stunning public commitment. He looks at them and says, "We will launch the hybrid by December, this year. No excuses." He didn't ask the engineers if it was possible. He didn't try to negotiate a timeline. The crucial point is that he deliberately made this impossible promise to both the board and the press for a very specific reason. He had to force innovation. He knew without a shadow of a doubt that if he left an escape hatch open, the conservative culture at Toyota would immediately take it.
7 months. Because of that ultimatum, the engineering team suddenly had only 7 months to make automotive history. 7 months to deliver a functional, mass-market hybrid vehicle. It was the absolute ultimate burn-the-boats psychological tactic. By removing the very option of delay, the engineers literally had no choice but to find a way forward.
Section 3. Trade-offs and Aftermath, The Cost of Disruption.
Against all odds, on October 14, 1997, the first-generation Prius officially hit the market. And let's be perfectly honest here, it was a weird-looking, expensive, underpowered little sedan. Critics initially just yawned at it. But Okuda didn't care at all. He was playing the long game. Immediate blockbuster sales? That wasn't the actual goal here. The Prius was a deliberate instrument. It was designed to prove that electrification was actually viable. And more importantly, to violently shock Toyota's internal culture, forcing a massive shift in their mindset from playing it safe to being unapologetically bold. And this brilliantly illustrates the result of that long game. 2 million. Today, Toyota sells over 2 million hybrid vehicles every single year across the globe. From Hollywood celebrities parading them around in the mid-2000s to the Prius basically becoming the backbone of the entire modern taxi fleet, the sheer dominance of Toyota's current hybrid lineup is a direct, undeniable result of that reckless, brilliant gamble back in 1997.
However, to truly explain the full picture, we have to objectively look at the darker side of this disruption. There were severe trade-offs. On one side of the ledger, yes, we have Okuda's undeniable triumphs, massive global expansion, and hybrid dominance. But on the other side, critics strongly argue his ruthless cost-cutting and rapid expansion ultimately fractured Toyota's legendary reliability. In fact, many industry experts point out that this aggressive growth directly contributed to the massive 2010 recall crisis regarding unintended acceleration. Okuda pushed the company to the absolute brink, and eventually, the seams started to rip.
Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds. The Leadership Playbook, Lessons from an Outsider.
So, beyond just automotive history, what are the actual actionable takeaways we can distill from Okuda's tenure? Well, there are 3 fundamental rules we can draw from his strategy. Step 1, outsiders can transform insular groups. His lack of deep family ties is exactly what allowed him to make those cold, necessary cuts. Step 2, public ultimatums force innovation. Making the Prius deadline entirely public made failure impossible. By the way, it's the exact same psychological playbook modern tech leaders like Elon Musk use today. And step 3, legacy requires big bets. You don't have to be right on everything, but you absolutely must be right on the massive, industry-defining pivots.
Okuda eventually retired from the chairmanship in 2009. And sure, today fully electric vehicles are slowly starting to overtake the legacy of the original Prius. Yet the DNA he injected into the company, it remains fully intact. Current leaders, including Akio Toyoda, the founder's grandson, openly credit Okuda for instilling the speed and modernization that makes Toyota the world's most valuable automaker today. He didn't just change their products, he permanently altered their metabolism.
Looking back at his controversial time at the top, Okuda offered a pretty unapologetic final reflection. He said, "I don't care if people call me stubborn. Results matter more than opinions." It's a really powerful reminder for all of us that the hybrid revolution you see on the roads today was never just some inevitable step in automotive evolution. No way. It was a forced, deeply uncomfortable bet made by an impatient visionary.
Which ultimately leaves us with a pretty complex legacy to untangle. How do we weigh the world-changing success of the hybrid engine against the ruthless, culture-breaking tactics it actually took to get there? Was Hiroshi Okuda a corporate hero who swooped in and saved a stagnant giant? Or is he a cautionary tale about the incredibly high cost of hyper-aggressive disruption? I'd love to know where you land on this, so let's debate it in the comments below. Keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.